Hello and welcome to Drama Crime Podcast. Today we're diving into the extraordinary tale of history's most audacious con artist, a man who managed to sell the Eiffel Tower not once, but twice, and lived to tell about it. Picture this. Someone approaches you with an offer to purchase the Eiffel Tower. Sounds absolutely ridiculous, doesn't it? Yet in the roaring 1920s, one remarkable individual pulled off exactly this impossible feat, twice over. Meet Count Victor Lustig, the mastermind behind some of history's most brilliant cons. This wasn't just any ordinary swindler, this was the king of con men. A charismatic genius who didn't merely sell Paris's most famous landmark, he also crafted magical money-making machines, deceived wealthy Americans during the Jazz Age, convinced investors to fund fake Broadway productions, and even managed to outsmart Al Capone, Chicago's most feared mob boss. But who was this mysterious figure? Where did his incredible journey begin, and what drove him to use his exceptional intelligence for such elaborate deceptions instead of legitimate success? Today, we'll uncover the fascinating life of Victor Lustig, a man whose brilliance could have changed the world for the better, but who instead chose to become the greatest con artist of his era. This is Drama Crime Podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe to encourage us. See you next time with other mystery cases still awaiting answers. That wraps up our episode today. Thanks so much for joining me, and I'll see you again in the next one. Take care. Victor Lustig entered the world on January 4, 1890, in the small town of Hostine, located in the Bohemian region of what was then the Austro-Hungarian Empire, now part of the Czech Republic. Born into a comfortable middle-class family, Victor's father served as mayor of their small town. His birth name was Robert V. Miller, though he wouldn't keep this identity for long. From childhood, Victor displayed extraordinary intelligence. He absorbed knowledge rapidly, possessed remarkable linguistic talents, and mastered 5 languages: Czech, German, English, French, and Italian. However, alongside his brilliance came troublesome traits: a love for gambling, an appetite for risk, and most significantly, an uncanny ability to persuade others that bordered on the supernatural. At 19, while studying at the University of Paris, Victor began spending his free time in gambling establishments, particularly excelling at poker, bridge, and billiards. His skills were so exceptional that True Detective Mysteries magazine once wrote that he could make cards do everything except speak. During this period, he acquired the distinctive scar on his left cheek, the result of an altercation with a jealous boyfriend whose girlfriend he'd been pursuing. This scar would become his trademark for life. Upon leaving university, Victor decided to use his intelligence and charm for special means of making a living. He started as a pickpocket, thief, and casino con artist. He began adopting numerous aliases, particularly favoring fake noble titles like Baron, Count, or Duke, eventually settling primarily on Count Victor Lustig. His European background and refined accent made him particularly appealing to wealthy Americans who, during that era, were fascinated by European nobility. Before World War I, Victor began working the luxury transatlantic steamships targeting wealthy passengers. He dressed impeccably, displayed perfect manners, and possessed a charm that captivated everyone he met. This marked the beginning of his career as a world-class con artist. Aboard the luxurious transatlantic steamers, Victor Lustig devised the con that would make him internationally famous: the Romanian money box. This device resembled a wooden chest about the size of a suitcase, featuring 2 money slots and elaborate fake mechanisms with various levers. Victor claimed this machine could duplicate money using secret technology involving radium. His method was ingeniously simple. Victor would approach wealthy passengers, especially businessmen, gradually building relationships before secretly revealing his miraculous device. After extensive persuasion, he would demonstrate its operation. He'd borrow a $100 bill from his mark, place it in the box along with blank paper, turn the levers, and announce they must wait 6 hours. Most victims would happily dine or play cards during the waiting period, with Victor accompanying them. No one suspected or watched the box. Upon returning, they discovered 2 genuine $100 bills in the previously empty drawer. Unknown to them, Victor had preloaded 2 real bills in the box's hidden mechanism. After witnessing this miracle, victims would beg Victor to sell them the box. He'd reluctantly agree, eventually accepting prices ranging from $10,000 to $30,000, sometimes as much as $47,000. Once Victor disembarked, buyers would discover the box produced only blank paper after exhausting the 2 preloaded bills. Victor's psychological genius lay in understanding human nature. Most victims were too embarrassed to report the crime, unwilling to admit their gullibility. This was a self-protecting scam. The more absurd it seemed, the more ashamed victims became. Secret Service agents described him as elusive as cigarette smoke and charming as a young girl's dream. Victor earned enormous sums from this con, using the money to support his family. In 1919, he married an innocent young woman from Kansas and had children, while simultaneously maintaining an affair with a wealthy New York socialite named Billy May Scheibel. When World War I disrupted ocean travel, Victor permanently relocated to America, seeking new opportunities in the land of possibilities. In May 1925, Victor Lustig traveled to Paris with his most ambitious scheme brewing in his mind. While reading a newspaper at a cafe, he spotted an article that would change his destiny. The piece discussed the enormous costs of maintaining the Eiffel Tower. By 1925, the tower was 36 years old and showing its age. It required repainting every 7 years with 60 tons of paint. The maintenance costs were becoming a burden for the French government. Crucially, the Eiffel Tower had been constructed for the 1889 World's Fair and was originally intended to stand for only 20 years. Extensions had been granted repeatedly since then. Many Parisians disliked the tower, calling it a barbarous iron heap and a hideous nightmare. The famous writer Guy de Maupassant termed it an elongated pyramid that deserved destruction. Victor saw his golden opportunity. He hired expert forgers to create fake government documents, identifying himself as Deputy General Director of the Ministry of Posts and Telegraphs. He then sent invitation letters to 6 leading scrap metal dealers, inviting them to a top-secret meeting at the luxurious Hotel de Crillon. At the meeting, Victor appeared as a high-ranking government official. He explained that the French government had decided to sell the Eiffel Tower for scrap due to excessive maintenance costs. He emphasized the sale's secrecy. Public knowledge would certainly trigger protests. They had been selected as trustworthy businessmen. Victor presented genuine facts about the tower's incompatibility with Paris's other architecture, such as Gothic churches or the Arc de Triomphe. He transported all the dealers to view the Eiffel Tower in limousines, presenting himself as an official with fake credentials. During the tour, Victor studied each dealer, selecting André Paulin as his primary target, a man lacking confidence who desperately wanted acceptance in Parisian business circles. Back at the hotel, Victor invited everyone to submit bids the following day. Paulin requested a private meeting, explaining that he was new to Parisian business and lacked the connections of others. This was Victor's perfect opening. He portrayed himself as a corrupt official, claiming his government salary was insufficient and suggesting that Paulin pay a bribe to secure selection. Paulin understood perfectly. He paid 70,000 francs, equivalent to $1.1 million today, covering both the tower and the bribe. Within hours of receiving payment, Victor was aboard a train to Vienna. When Paulin realized he had been deceived, his embarrassment prevented him from contacting police, exactly as Victor had anticipated. This was the first successful sale of the Eiffel Tower, executed with absolute perfection. The most astonishing aspect of Victor Lustig's story wasn't selling the Eiffel Tower once, it was what happened next. After hiding in Austria for a month and seeing no newspaper reports about Poisson's deception, Victor concluded his plan was too perfect to abandon. He returned to Paris and sold the Eiffel Tower again. This time, he used identical methods, inviting another group of scrap dealers to secret meetings, using the same forged documents and telling the same story. This second con nearly succeeded as well. However, luck wasn't on his side this time. One dealer grew suspicious and contacted the police. Learning of this development, Victor hastily boarded a ship to America before authorities could reach his hotel. This escape forced him to leave Europe permanently. But for Victor, America represented new opportunities where he could elevate his con artistry to even greater heights. He arrived in Chicago, which, during that era, was a city of crime and illegal money. Victor knew he'd find wealthy targets there, and he possessed sufficient courage to approach America's most dangerous mark, Al Capone, Chicago's mob boss. What Victor didn't realize was that this decision would lead to his life's turning point. Conning Al Capone differed vastly from deceiving ordinary businessmen. Failure could mean death. But Victor thrived on challenges, and he had a special plan for Al Capone, or Scarface, that differed from all his previous schemes. Victor Lustig's decision to target Al Capone represented one of history's most audacious and insane criminal acts. Al Capone, nicknamed Scarface, controlled Chicago through violence and murder. Victor knew full well that failure meant certain death. However, his plan differed from previous cons. He didn't intend to steal Capone's money, but execute a long-term deception. Victor approached Capone with an investment proposal, requesting $50,000 with promises of doubling the return within 2 months. Capone was suspicious, but provided the money. Victor deposited it in a safe and waited. After 2 months, Victor returned to Capone and repaid the full amount, explaining that the project had failed and he didn't want to take advantage of Capone. Capone was impressed. He believed he'd found an honest businessman in a world full of deceivers. This is where Victor began his real plan. He told Capone that due to the project's failure, he was now completely broke. Capone sympathized and gave him $5,000 to help restart his business. This was exactly what Victor wanted from the beginning. He obtained $5,000 without any risk, and Capone still considered him trustworthy. But Victor's greed began destroying him. In 1930, he partnered with a pharmacist and chemist from Nebraska to begin large-scale counterfeiting. He was bold enough to counterfeit $100 bills, the most rigorously examined currency by banks. His work was so skilled that one judge said he was like a government competing with the U.S. Treasury. This level of counterfeiting began threatening confidence in America's economic system. The Secret Service established a special task force to hunt him down. The team was led by Agent Peter A. Rubano, an Italian-American from the Bronx, who swore to capture Victor. The cat-and-mouse game began. Victor was masterful at identity fraud, possessing 47 fake identification cards and over 45 aliases. He could transform into a priest, delivery driver, or repairman. On May 10, 1935, on a New York street corner, came the command, "Hands up!" Victor looked around and saw Agent Rubano standing in a circle of agents. Victor Lustig, the king of con men, was finally captured. But the story wasn't over. On September 1, 1935, he escaped from Manhattan's inescapable federal jail by creating rope from bedsheets, cutting through bars, and rappelling down like Tarzan. When guards spotted him, he pretended to be a window washer, bowed to the guards, then ran away quickly. He was recaptured after an exciting chase and finally sent to Alcatraz, America's most escape-proof prison. Victor Lustig died of pneumonia in 1947. His death certificate listed his occupation as salesman, which was actually accurate. He was one of history's greatest salesmen, except he sold things he didn't own.
Conclusion: the genius who chose the wrong path. Victor Lustig, the man who sold the Eiffel Tower twice, conned a mob boss, and created fake money printing machines, represents the perfect example of misdirected genius. He possessed intelligence, charm, courage, and extraordinary communication skills. Had he chosen to use these abilities for good, he might have become a successful businessman, influential politician, or a leader who changed the world. Instead, he chose to be a con artist. Despite living an exciting life filled with money and fame, he died alone and forgotten in prison. Victor Lustig's case teaches us several important lessons. Greed and lack of ethics lead to downfall, regardless of intelligence. Misused abilities become curses rather than blessings that bring happiness. Charm and intelligence don't guarantee life satisfaction without morality and respect for others. Those who deceive others ultimately deceive themselves. Victor thought he was too clever to be caught, but greed eventually destroyed him. Victor Lustig may have been the king of con men, but he was merely a slave to his own greed. Today, as we face new forms of fraud, whether online or in the real world, let's remember the lessons from Victor Lustig's story. Things that seem too good to be true usually aren't true, and real intelligence means knowing how to use good judgment and not being blinded by greed. Thank you for listening to this tale of the legendary world-class con artist who deceived his way into selling the Eiffel Tower. That's all the time we have today. If there are any errors in the information, I apologize here. Thank you everyone for following Drama Crime Podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe to encourage us. See you next time with other mystery cases still awaiting answers. That wraps up our episode today. Thanks so much for joining me, and I'll see you again in the next one. Take care.